What if the person who hit you, person who screamed at you, convinced you it was your fault? This is an idea I have been toying with. And this is what I went through, and I just didn't know any better. I'm going to tell you 7 things that narcissists do. This is not a full list, of course. It's just what I've observed. Each behavior that I've seen taught me something about surviving until I finally learned how to live. It taught me who I didn't want to become. And I'll also share how I tested my ideas and how I healed from each of these 7 things so you can start healing yourself. They didn't just hurt me though. They taught me that love meant pain and that safety is earned through silence and making yourself smaller. And that if I wanted peace, I had to disappear first. Does that sound familiar to you? At first, I thought I was the problem, and I thought I was hard to love. But the truth is, I was raised in a war zone, and I was told that was home and that was love. But after all that, I came up with a strategy, and here's the strategy I live by now. 1, have boundaries. And of course, uphold them because boundaries don't work unless you're holding them up. 2, respect yourself and say wherever your needs because you are the best person to give you what you need. And 3, only stay close to the people who are genuinely happy when you are winning, who make you feel safe, seen, and strong. But I didn't say who it was. So who do you think this person was? Just take a guess and leave it in the comments below. You might think you know, but even today, the truth stuns me. I guarantee you, by the end of this video, you are going to see what love is not. You will never let yourself settle ever again. These are not in any order, of course. So here's the first one. The apology trap. The first time that they apologized, I thought we were getting somewhere. But it wasn't actually an apology. It was just like a performance, just for show. They would say things like, I'm sorry, you're so sensitive. I wouldn't have reacted like that if you didn't push me to do so. Does that sound familiar? They blamed me every time until one day I started blaming myself. I internalized it. And one day, I even started apologizing for something that they did. And then they looked at me like, she finally understands. So I stopped reacting. Just started watching what they did when they couldn't manipulate me through guilt anymore. This is how I healed from these fake apology things. I realized I didn't need closure from someone who was trying to use and manipulate my forgiveness as a tool for their benefit. And then I learned as well, love doesn't twist pain into leverage. Love doesn't manipulate you. Let's move on to the second thing that they do. Spotlight theft. I shared a win, something I was proud of. And they said, that's nothing. I already did that. Or they would say, that's no big deal. Or what's the big deal? Or belittle my accomplishment in other ways. It's like they couldn't celebrate me because to them, my success felt like competition. To me, that is strange because there is more than enough room for all of us to shine. Here's how I tested it. I paid attention to how they reacted when I was winning, but I had to pay attention to the events where they were not in the center. So for example, it had to be an accomplishment of mine that was just purely my own. And that's when I started to notice. They weren't happy for my accomplishments unless they were in it. So here's how I healed from spotlight theft. I decided I'm going to stop making myself smaller just to make everyone else comfortable. Because I realized my joy and my accomplishments, they're not a threat and I don't need permission to shine. If anything, my accomplishments should inspire other people to do better. My accomplishments and other people's accomplishments always make me feel like, wow, I love that they're doing that. And I want to do that too. Number 3, boundaries. See if this is ready. So there was one day I tried to express a boundary, and you know how they responded? They responded with, "This hurt me," or something like that. Or they just turned it around instantly. They made it seem like it was bad for them. And they said things like, "You're attacking me. You're always making me the villain. I could never do anything right." Does that sound familiar? And then one time they wanted to talk about me setting boundaries, and they cried and they seemed upset and apologetic. And I thought maybe finally they understand why I have these boundaries. But you know what? Those tears were like fake tears. They were fake tears because the next day they tried to guilt me into not setting a boundary again. So here's how I tested it, because I was like, this is weird. They're not letting me set boundaries. This was my test. I tried having a calm conversation without blaming either of us. I'm very good at having a conversation that is very neutral. And then I saw that even if it was very neutral and I was trying to be very collaborative, they still acted in a way as if they still needed someone to punish in this conversation. So here's how I healed. This person was using emotion like a chess piece, and I had to understand that. So I just stopped trying to teach them empathy, because what's the point? What's the point of trying to teach someone emotions, your boundaries, what they're doing? I just stopped. Another thing that they do, they control disguise as care. And this one tricked me for a while. At first, it sounded like they loved me. And they would say things like, "Don't do that. That's not safe. That outfit's too much. You're better than that. Your friends don't care about you like I do." Does that sound familiar to you? After a while, though, it didn't feel like love anymore. It felt like surveillance and control. Everything I had to do had to be filtered through them first for approval. Here's how I tested it. I started choosing for myself, and I didn't ask them anymore. I didn't ask for their approval. I stopped caring about their approval. And once I started doing that, there was some fallout, and they were upset. It showed me how fragile their control was, but it also showed me how much they needed that control over me. So here's how I healed. I stopped mistaking control for concern. And then I also stopped asking permission just to be myself. I just started being myself. And that helped a lot. Number 5, weaponized vulnerability. This might have happened to you. I told this person something extremely personal and something that took a lot of courage to say. They even held me and said, "You can trust me," to give me a hug, which they don't normally give me hugs. So I was like, oh, maybe they're trying to comfort me. But guess what? Later, during an argument, they used it. And they threw it in my face. Honestly, it felt like betrayal, but deeper. It felt as if I handed a piece of me and they held on to it and waited for the right time to use it. And they crushed it just to feel powerful. Messed up. So here's how I tested it, because I was getting this weird feeling. I just shared something small just to see if they respected it or respected me. Something that didn't really matter. But I made it seem like it was important, so then they thought it was important. And guess what? They didn't respect it. They didn't respect it, and it just became fuel for their next manipulation tactic. Here's how I healed. I actually stopped saying things. So I started guarding my truth, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. I didn't want them to know anything anymore. I didn't want them to use things against me anymore. Number 6, the friend circle that stayed silent. One day, I met their friends, and we were all just hanging out. I noticed all their friends laughed along with their cruelty, and they were quiet and smiled through a lot of the red flags. One of them actually pulled me aside and said, "We've all been there. Just be careful." And that's when I realized everyone else saw it too. But they all chose to live with it instead, and they all chose to not say anything. So here's how I tested it. I watched how, not the friend, but the person who was doing all these narcissistic things to me, I watched how they treated people who had nothing to offer. What I saw was very interesting because it was all about control and not connection. Put it like that. Here's how I healed. I built a new friendship circle. One where kindness isn't currency, it's the standard. And kindness is not conditional. Love is not conditional. And that, to me, made all the difference. The 7 things they do. The discard. One day, I said no. I stood my ground, and they dropped me like I was never there. And then, I saw it in front of me with my own 2 eyes. There were plans being made, messages, all behind my back, just because I wasn't wanting to play along anymore. They were replacing me, and that's okay. I'm glad they were. And here's how I tested it. I actually just stopped begging, and what showed up was silence. I'm okay with that. And here's how I healed. I realized I wasn't discarded because I was too much. I was discarded because I stopped being easy to control. Now, who do you think this was? Some people are probably going to think this was an ex-boyfriend of yours, some type of toxic relationship, some friendship, maybe a partner I couldn't let go of. But no, this person, it was the one who brought me into the world, was also the one who taught me how to abandon myself to feel loved, how to stay small, stay silent, stay closed, no matter the cost. But I don't live in that story anymore. I've actually gotten no contact, so don't worry. And it's actually the best thing I've ever done. And I'm not surviving anymore. I'm thriving. I built a life where peace is not temporary. It is all the time. Love isn't earned through pain. My needs aren't inconvenient. They're actually respected. It's great. It's all calm. And to be honest, I thought no contact would break me because it was hard. But actually, even though it was really hard, it was one of the best decisions I had made for myself. Like in my entire life, I have a handful of my favorite big, good decisions, and that's one of them for sure. That was really, truly for me. I didn't have any more guilt. No going back. Emotionally, everything became more stable. Everything was calm. No more manipulation. She lost access to me, and then I reclaimed my life.